Good afternoon. We are back and up and running once again. Let me get everything switched over to the correct layout, and we will pick up where we left off, sort of, with today's drawing stream. All right, we've got audio and video. Let me turn on the BGM. We're doing the same royalty-free chill mix from last time. Figured that'd be a decent vibe for drawing. Alright, so what are we going to be doing today? Kind of like we've done on the drawing streams up till now, we're going to be experimenting around with the idea of character concepts and costume or outfit design, like we've done before. But to make things a little bit interesting, we're going to be doing front perspective drawings this time. And so what we have here is two basic, real simple sketch primaries. Let me unhide them here. You've got an average build, male model, and I just sketched this one as we were loading up just because I needed one for reference too. And we have a basic proportion female model. Not meant to be any specific build, since we can adjust that if we needed to for an actual character. These are just neutral models that we're going to use as a primary base to draw the outfits, which is what matters. And I have the center axis line here to help out with sort of like the mirror plane for symmetry. In the event we decide to do symmetrical outfits, which I don't know if all of them are going to be symmetrical, but this will give us an easy way to work with our center plane. So if we flip everything and copy it over, it'll be real easy to do so, and we can use that as a guide. Now, as just kind of an explanation for what I'm doing with this particular format, or what I've used it for so far, here's a little bit of a sneak peek of what I was doing with this, and I'm not going to show this off more than once, so folks that are watching this live or in the archives, this is the only time I'm going to show this. This is going to be what we're going to be working with today as far as our goal. These are outfit concept sketches that I did for a potential new outfit for my VTuber model. And I did these offline last week. And this is using the male base. And what this is a bunch of ideas for outfits. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere or what's going to become of these, but I had some ideas and I decided to get them down, get them captured in case I use them for something later. So this sort of lineup of outfits is what we're going to do, and we'll see how I want to do the male versus female ones. I guess we'll see what we end up with first. And we'll do one at a time. And so I chose this format so that I could fit multiple sketches within one main canvas. If we use this particular proportion, we could probably fit 8 or so kind of comfortably. maybe 10, 8 to 10 in one. I think I'll scale the female one up a little bit more. These don't have to be the same height, but if we're doing similar builds across different styles of clothing or armor or what have you, it'll be helpful if they're roughly the same kind of proportional distribution here. And what I want to do, first we'll save, since I just did all this stuff as the stream was starting up. I'm going to pull up, if I can find it, the last concept list we were doing, where we were going through the different races in the overall fictional universe of lore, and we were drawing a male one and a female one with like a mix of clothing and armor. Let me go pick that one up from the list so we can see where we left off. Okay, here it is. We were here. What I want to start with on the new format, and we'll probably go back to using this one for something too, and finishing them all out at some point. I just want to be able to work with a couple different formats so I'm not drawing the exact same way every time I practice. But we left off with these people, the ones with the kind of snake-like characteristics. So I'll refer to this one to see what I've already done. Okay, I think I know where we're going to start first. Let's do the female design first. Doesn't have to be in any particular order, but we'll alternate. Male, female, and we'll see what we can come up with. For this one, let's think about doing... maybe we do kind of more armor for this first one. I got kind of an idea I want to tinker around with here. Kind of like an armored upper body, like torso covering here. I'm thinking about the function, what an armor set like this would be used for. To work necessarily that close. I'm thinking kind of like light to medium skirmish armor, so maybe not super heavy, fully reinforced kind of full combat armor. Maybe something for maybe stealth, or instances where it's not going to be like a full-blown assault, but the user still needs protection. And I'm thinking for the arms, we do like a lightweight forearm or a bracer set. And I think I will do a symmetrical design for this one. This particular race is kind of known for more symmetrical designs compared to some of the other ones we've seen. There is an exception when it comes to some of the weapons, which maybe we can demonstrate here. And what I'll do is I'll get the basic outfit sketched out, and then I'll mirror it and then make the changes on one side. Sort of look on the plating for the armor, both on the torso, upper torso, and the lower midsection. We're going for kind of like a shell like plating. And for the lower body, again, we're talking skirmish gear, maybe scouting or light combat. So we'll go more sleek fitted, like a heavy plating, not heavy plating, heavy fabric or protective fatigues, but not full leg armor. And then maybe we'll have to play around with the thickness on the texturing for the pants to show that it's actual texturing, not wrinkles. And we want to kind of incorporate some, this might be a little bit less apparent till I add in some more details, but we want kind of these bug-like or insect-like themes with the way the shell plating and the armor looks. Since that's part of the kind of unique characteristics of this particular race. All right, what we can do is we can flip what I've done so far, and then we're going to edit the left side to add in some weaponry that's going to sort of change the overall symmetry of the design. Okay, we're going to merge these two. We're going to call this idea 1. And we don't really need the center line. We can delete that so we can actually see what's on the middle here. Okay, and we're gonna add a weapon on this side so we can actually erase the arm. We're gonna redraw kind of large, bulky weapon, which I think I've talked about before. I'll kind of explain. Maybe we'll scale it down a little bit because again, it's supposed to be kind of like scout gear. Okay, we can actually delete the primary or hide it for a sec. You can see underneath. Maybe we can widen it a little bit. We don't want it to be too disproportionately large compared to the other arm. It's supposed to be not super heavy, so it can still be used in combat, even though it's, again, like a scouting or maybe even like an espionage type build. Okay, so what is this kind of weird looking four-clawed gauntlet looking thing actually do? What's it for? So the idea behind this particular weapon, as it were, is one, it's meant to be kind of like a protective, defensive object that can be used to guard against attacks, whether that's range attacks, melee attacks, etc. It can be used to defend or block, but its attacks come from the claws here. And can't really tell based on just a real quick sketch and what I've done here, but these claws are made of a really flexible and almost elastic material, but they're very sharp on the ends. These are claws, they're not just fingers. And so they're sharp, but they're flexible. And the way this particular weapon is supposed to work is the claws can be manipulated by the actual user's hand. So this isn't the model's actual hand. Her hand is inside the gauntlet and controlling it from within. Kind of like a puppet rigging almost, but with circuitry and actual electronics. It's an actual functional electronic piece of weaponry. But by controlling it from the inside, the fingers of the weapon can be extended outwards a considerable length depending on its design. Sometimes 1.5, 2.5, maybe 3 times the length you see here due to the elasticity of the material of these things. And so they function kind of like whips. They can be used like lashes to kind of cut in different directions because of their flexibility. They can be pulled tight and packed together like a spearing weapon. So instead of it being flexible like that, they can be controlled so that they stick together like that, but extend outwards, and it becomes a piercing weapon. And so depending on the type of use in combat, whether it's trying to attack enemies from a distance or disarm an opponent, or even in stealth operations for assassinations and whatnot, being able to get the drop on someone and using these claws like a strangulation device, like a garrote wire. It depends on what the use case is, but it's a really versatile weapon that can be used in a lot of different scenarios. And despite its kind of unusual and bulky look, the multiple ways it can be kind of manipulated is one of the reasons why it's a functional weapon of choice for this particular race. And it doesn't really have a name. I should really come up with a name for that type of weapon. I suppose because the elasticity or kind of rigid nature of the claws can be changed, it could also function like a sword in this particular state here. If they're set rigidly in kind of a packed, multiple pointed piercing kind of arrangement, then it can be used as one like longer range stabbing weapon too. So go ahead and zoom out. I think what I'll do, and this might not be a consistent formula for all these, I think I want to pair the designs instead of going opposite. So if we do a female armor set, then we do a male one to show off a different style or a different kind of design philosophy and function compared to the female one, so that we have kind of similar designs instead of contrasts, which we did on the last run. The last version here with these concepts where we went armor and clothing, if I remember, for this particular combination. So we're going to pair this time. What we'll do is we'll move this one off to the side so we can work off of it. It'll be the same race, but we'll do the male version. And we can think of an alternate use case. So if number one here is lighter skirmish, scouting, or not heavy combat, maybe we go the opposite for this one. So like heavier assault armor, or something that someone would use if they were in kind of like a heavy war zone where they have to worry about taking fire. Right away, we're going to go heavier starting design. We can even vary the build of the character themselves so that we're not working off of just same build every time. And we go a bit heavier in build for this model. And what we've got here is kind of a longer, it's more like a cuirass, heavier upper armor, upper body armor piece, as it were. But still keeping the idea of like the kind of bug-like plating. We want to give kind of like a rough, weathered texture. I think this would be probably like metallic if we're looking at color palettes. So it wouldn't be necessarily like a bone or shell material, but kind of looking like that style-wise, but the material would be probably metal or some sort of composite protective material. Again, thinking about having to deal with heavy combat. Okay, going for a bit more kind of like a sharper, not necessarily pauldron really, but these arm gauntlets would be probably secured up to the shoulder, but not necessarily attached to the main body piece here. Otherwise, it would reduce mobility, make it harder to move. Now for the forearms, I like the idea of sticking with the forearm guards, but we go for something kind of a bit more heavy, even shielded. I'm gonna clean up the edges here. Okay, now I gotta think about how I want to do the lower body. I'm thinking we do kind of like greaves or like leg armor that goes pretty high up, at least to maybe about here. But I gotta think of what's protecting essentially that crotchal region here, since we wouldn't want to leave it open. Okay, we're gonna go for like an armored bit that goes down like this. Be attached to this lower or midsection area, not the upper part, kind of fastened beneath it. So that the upper torso can move separately from the lower torso. Oh, we can do something like this. This would be leg armor that's covering the thighs, quads, upper leg area, and enough so that it would protect kind of the medius part of the legs from incoming attacks. Thinking about, oh hey, I didn't see the save reminder from Lava King. That is a good idea. How's it going, Lava? Welcome to the drawing stream. Hopefully you didn't send that like 30 minutes ago and I just missed it. No, you're good, man. I'm kind of so closely tuned in to what I'm doing here. I need to look up at the chat every once in a while. But welcome. Hope you're having a decent Thursday. It is Judo Day, right? Back on the regular schedule. I know I ask you that every time, but I just want to make sure I'm remembering correctly based on what you told me before. We are doing front perspective concept drawings here. Lava asks, anyway, Raku, if you're space wasp kings that make me and Red Dragon workers or drones or soldier wasps. First of all, I affiliate with bees, not wasps. Not wasps or hornets, because they are not as constructive as bees. I know they're similar animals or similar insects, but bees make honey. Bees are wasps. They're not the same species. They're cousins. Bees are the productive cousins of wasps. Wasps are jerks. I do not like wasps. And I say that having had to deal with them around my house before. Hornets and wasps tend to be more invasive and pests. But bees make honey, and honey is delicious. And in general, bees don't mess with you unless you mess with them. You step on their hives, yeah, they'll definitely mess you up, but they're not as invasive. They're not pests. So we're all about space bees here, not space wasps or hornets. So don't get it twisted. But to answer your question, you and Red Dragon as part of the mod team are more like the Royal Guard. You two function more like kind of the elites that help keep things in line here by doing things like expelling bots. And if we ever had a need to rein in the chat, which you folks are well behaved, so it doesn't really happen a lot, but Lava says great, my Wi-Fi is glitchy. Oh. Yeah, let me know if you need me to repeat anything. The connection's being spotty. But it is kind of timely that you're asking me questions about bugs, since we're designing concepts for the race that is very bug-like in design aesthetics and also genetics. Lava says, I think I'm the only one in chat. I don't normally check. I just go by based on who's talking to me. I don't really pay attention to who's there, but let me look. Oh, okay. Yeah, I see the elements bot and you're in there. So, just as a general thing, since people who've been hanging out here on the streams or watching them in the archives as you're watching later on YouTube, whenever I'm doing any sort of streaming, whether it's playing a game or drawing or doing music or whatever, I treat it as if someone is watching. And that's not because I think I'm special. It's just because whoever's watching the content, whether live or in the archives, should be treated like they're engaging with the content. And so I used to do Let's Plays before I was a VTuber. I don't know how much I've talked about that with you folks, but I did do Let's Plays for a while. And so I'm used to talking when I'm doing something and explaining what I'm doing or thinking about things to talk about. So even if no one is here in chat, like let's say no one just happens to show up to a stream one day, I'm still going to treat it like I'm talking to someone because someone may be watching it later or whatnot. I don't just do whatever I'm doing in dead silence. To me, that's not really good content if I'm going to be streaming. So anyway, just as an aside, because I don't pay attention to who's in chat, but if people talk, I will definitely talk to them. If no one talks, then I will just talk to myself, because again, it's better than dead silence. Lava says, you would like the Kabuto riders as they too share a high-tech insect motif. I suggest you look at the common rider, the bee. Yeah, I've heard of the bee. I think Snake maybe has posted some stuff, maybe even directly sent to me about that particular character. That sounds familiar. But yeah, insect motifs is what we're going for with these two characters. These models that are meant to be armor concept designs. So that's what we're doing today, Lava. We're doing armor concept designs with a male and female model and going for kind of similar ideas, since they're supposed to be from the same race. From the universe of fiction and lore we do a lot of these concepts from. And so to kind of affect that idea of insect or bug-like themes, doesn't have to be insects specifically, it could be arachnids, just bugs in general. What this race's outfits, both armor and regular clothing, tend to do is have a lot of kind of layers and things that look like the texturing of shell plating or like a kind of hard chitinous type of material. Obviously, dibs on Scorpion. Scorpions are cool, as long as they don't invade your space. I used to live in Texas, in Yankee Land here a long time ago, which is desert, and scorpions are very common there. They tend to hide under stuff. They don't really get inside your home too often because there's not really a lot to eat there, but they do hide under things and they seek cover. So if you're moving stuff in like a garage or a shed or something, you want to use gloves and be careful because they are dangerous. And Father BPM got stung by a scorpion a long time ago, and he had to go to the hospital. He was okay, but it was not fun. He said it hurt a lot and definitely ruined his day. Scorpions or grasshoppers. Yeah, grasshoppers are cool. Or crickets. Fast and nimble flying insects. Lava says scorpions are actually funny when you realize scorpions aren't so much assassins, but rather super shy with big pinchers. Yeah, they're hunters, but like they're nocturnal hunters primarily, and so they'll go after things. And the pinchers, at least from what I've read a decent amount on different types of animals. They use the claws to kind of hold their prey, and any sort of actual damage is inflicted by their venom and their tails. Some of the bigger ones, I think like the emperor scorpion, can actually put like crushing force with its claws, but in general I think scorpions rely on being able to stalk and surprise prey and then subdue them quickly with venom. And you might not know this, or maybe you do. When it comes to scorpion breeds, the smaller ones are the more dangerous when it comes to their venom. The larger ones will definitely hurt if they sting you, but the ones that are more likely to kill you are the small ones. Their venom's more potent. And I believe the one that stung Father BPM was a medium one, not a big one. I don't know how big they get in Texas, but it wasn't a really tiny one that would have been life-threatening. So it was, I want to say, medium. So big enough to warrant a hospital visit, and small enough that it was extraordinarily painful to get stung. Would not recommend. Wow, says I've eaten a scorpion in a lollipop. Yeah, what it tastes like. Probably tasted like candy, but like most bugs, I imagine they're crunchy. Thankfully, where I live now on the West Coast, we don't really have, well, we don't have scorpions where I live, but we've got some spiders. Some somewhat dangerous spiders live on the West Coast, like the black widow and the brown recluse specifically. But they don't really, again, get into your home so much. They tend to live in places where they can hunt. And inside of human homes aren't super great for that. You got plenty of regular, like, house spiders and those big ones, those big house spiders, but they're not dangerous. Not much flavor. Candy's basic. The scorpion's not much flavor. Probably more of a texture thing, I guess. Or just a novelty to say you ate a scorpion. Here's a question for you, Lava, or anyone else who might be listening. What is the most unusual food you've ever eaten? Could be something live or something that was prepared. But what would you say is the most unusual food you've ever eaten? I'll give you a chance to mention something, and I'll kind of talk through what I think is in my list. Lava says a live worm or gator. Okay. Live worm, you mean like a mealworm or like an earthworm? I have not tried alligator. I've heard it tastes similar to chicken. I would definitely try it if I had the chance. I just have not had the chance. Oh, earthworm? Okay. Okay, Lava says tastes nothing like chicken. That's just what I've heard. Because, you know, people say everything tastes like chicken, right? So for me, the weirdest thing I've ever eaten, I don't know if it's necessarily considered that weird, depending on what culture you come from, but me not being part of this particular culture was pretty weird for me, and it was pig ears. And this was a Chinese place that some friends of mine took me to, and they were originally from Hong Kong, and so it was like a Hong Kong type place, but they served pig ears there. And it was interesting because it wasn't raw, so they weren't like just raw pig ears freshly severed. They were cooked and they were thinly sliced, so it actually looked kind of like a prosciutto, or maybe like a little bit of thicker ham in kind of like a soy sauce glaze or sauce on them. So when they were served to us, it was just like slices, slices of what looked like a meat with like a soy sauce on top. And taste-wise, it tasted fine. It tasted kind of like smoky bacon almost, but the texture was definitely something I did not like, because ears are cartilage. It was crunchy. It wasn't soft, and it wasn't, kind of firm like a regular meat. It was crunchy. Like you bite into the cartilage on chicken legs, like a drumstick or something, and it's that kind of crunchy texture. That's really big in a lot of Asian cultures. I know pretty much most of them like that type of texture of cartilage and stuff. Was not a fan. Taste, fine. Texture, did not enjoy. But we all tried it. I said, hey, we'll give it a try. My friends who were regulars there, they knew what they're getting into, but the rest of us dirty foreigners said, hey, we'll give it a try. It was weird, but it wasn't the worst. Hey, we got our first bot of the day. I got it. Be gone. Oh, I think it got caught by the Automod. I don't even know if it popped up in chat. You could see it, but let me see if it gives me the option to just delete it outright. Maybe not. Lava, can you see that? Can you see the bot thing in chat? Well, maybe you're not a good example because you're a mod. You might be able to see it regardless. But either way, we've been getting like at least one bot a stream, and so that's a ban. But yeah, I'd say weirdest thing I've ever eaten would be pig ears. The weirdest thing I've ever tasted, I have a different answer for. Weirdest thing I've ever tasted is durian candy. And I know durian itself, the fruit, is considered a really, really acquired taste. I've never tried the actual fresh fruit, but a long time ago, one of my bosses at the time had come back from Malaysia, and he brought a whole bag of hard candy that was durian flavored. And he didn't tell anyone in my office what it was. He's like, hey, brought some candy back here. If you guys want some, just left it on the table. And I went over, I looked at the package and I saw it was durian and never tried it. So I decided to try it. Everybody else just picked one up and they thought it was like pineapple because, spiky fruit looks kind of like a pineapple. Did not taste like a pineapple. I think if the fruit tastes anything like the candy, it is one of the most difficult to describe flavors I have ever encountered of anything. And I definitely didn't like it. I couldn't finish the candy. I spat it out. But I tried it for a bit, and it was just weird and not really a good flavor, but it coats your mouth and lingers. So even after I ate it and spat it out, my mouth tasted like durian aftertaste for a while until I had to go and like get a drink or eat something else. But my coworkers who didn't really know what it was and tried it, no, they were not happy. It was kind of funny. But yeah, very, very unusual. I can't even describe what it tastes like. It's just that unique. But I've heard the actual fresh fruit smells worse than it tastes, which is why it's banned in some airports. But I would give the fruit a try if someone could prepare it properly for me. And then I could compare it to what the candy tasted like. But man, it was definitely one of the most bizarre things I've ever tasted. Okay, let's merge each half of this and then we'll tighten up everything that's on the middle axis here. And I know a lot of Asian cultures, durian is considered like a delicacy and it's really popular. But that is a very unique fruit. We'll call this 1B. So thinking about the compare and contrast for these two outfits. Again, both armor, same race, just slightly different style of armor. On the male model, we've got a bit heavier kind of combat armor type of look. A lot of the kind of plating and overall protective parts of the armor are meant to cover as much of the body as possible while still being something that you can move in. So it's got to be functional but also protective. Some of the kind of bug-like themes that we have here would be like these bits here, which are kind of like a crystalline mineral or jewel inset into the armor to reinforce it and serve as kind of like an energy conduit. And I believe colloquially by this particular race they're called eyes because they're meant to kind of resemble like insect eyes. On the female model over here, to recap, again, a little bit lighter armor, so not quite as heavy, meant for kind of speed, mobility, things like scouting or maybe assassination missions. Of note, we gave the female model this sort of clawed gauntlet, which I don't know if Lava was here to hear my explanation, but basically it's a heavily armored electronic weapon that has these long, sharp but flexible claws that can be extended out, and their elasticity or rigidity can be changed so that they're either flexible and slashing like a whip, or they can be straightened out and made more rigid like a sharp piercing object like a sword or something that's used to stab. I should have given the male model a different type of weapon. We could probably do an entire session talking about weapon concept and design across the different races from this particular universe of fiction. So maybe that'll be something else. But one thing... Oh, Lava says, sorry, I left for a bit to find a charger. Oh, no, you're good. I was just recapping the designs here, so no worries. What I might think about doing in the future, and Lava or anybody else, you can tell me if you think this would be an interesting discussion. Because I think what matters is that I have things to kind of talk about here, and it doesn't really matter what I'm doing. But if I sketch out a whole bunch of designs ahead of time, so instead of us doing them on the fly maybe I do like 10 designs, 5 and 5, for like 5 male ones, 5 female ones, and I set them all up. And rather than spend the time drawing them, instead we do like a deep dive into the designs themselves and go through each one saying, okay, which race does this belong to? What's the design philosophy? Is it supposed to be clothing, or is it supposed to be armor? How does it work? What are some of the motifs and themes and central things? And basically do like a discussion on each design instead of me drawing it at the same time. Because if we did that, then all I'd have to do is draw the stuff ahead of time, and I could talk about this stuff endlessly. And so if you think it would be an interesting discussion to have it be more of a conversation instead of me drawing in real time, then I can look at doing that, and we do kind of like a presentation and discussion, because I can only do so much while I'm drawing. I can kind of talk about what I'm doing, but I gotta kind of jump back and forth. Love says, if I get to be one of the guys, I'm game for it. Yeah, I wasn't really thinking like an in-person conversation, since it might be a little bit difficult to keep track of on a call. But it would be like a format where we sit down, and here, I'll show you. This will be a better example, since we only got 2 of these. I said I wasn't going to show this again at the start of the stream, but just for the example, it's fine. So these are a bunch of model sketches that I'm working on. So what we would do is we would basically sit down on stream, and I would load up a sheet that looks like this, and maybe start 2 at a time. And we go through and say, all right, let's look at number 1 over here. What's the design philosophy and what went into it? What are all of the ideas and themes? How does it function? And have a discussion about that. And then move on to the next one and say, what are the differences? Is it from like the same group or a race? Different? And then it'd be kind of like a back and forth as far as, one, the information I'm presenting, and if chat has any ideas about ways to build off of the concepts for future designs. Like we could even do something where I have 2 finished designs, and we talk about ways to iterate off the design and say, okay, what if we copied that and then just changed one little bit, or changed one aspect of it so it becomes a different design. So it's kind of like a presentation and then like a revision exercise. The idea would be that I'm not drawing everything from scratch, so I can talk more instead of draw. And so I'll throw the idea out there. Lava, you can chew on that for a bit, and maybe next drawing stream I'll either try it. You know, if no one shows up, it's just going to be me talking endlessly. But it could be an interesting exercise in talking about a finished piece and saying, okay, what are we going to do with this, or what are some of the things that went into it? So, just an idea. Because I like the concept of iterative design quite a bit. To me, it's fun to take a design and change little bits to build out certain ideas or swap certain ideas in. But I also like the idea of just drawing it from scratch every time, from the ground up. So we could see, the point is to keep these sessions interesting, because I can draw by myself in dead silence off stream. If I'm gonna do it on stream, then I think it should be interesting. Okay, let's go back to the female one. We'll alternate, but now we'll go to a different race and a different style. Maybe we'll go clothing this time. Okay, let's refer back to here and see which of the races. Again, there's 11 of them. On this other format we've done on stream before, we were doing kind of like 3/4 perspectives and going down. Same deal, but we're kind of doing 1 armor, 1 clothing. Now we're doing 2 of the same, but I want to pick up with the races I haven't done designs for yet. So that one we just did with the kind of bug-looking outfits, that was one. Let's see. Did we do... Okay, there's them. Don't think we did the fire people. Fire Nation. Could have sworn we did, but I might be thinking of that one. Okay. Fire's next. Okay, casual wear. We'll give this character kind of like a choker or necklace. For this one, we're going to go for a more kind of cut-off garment, since this particular race comes from a really temperate, high-temperature planet. So their clothing tends to be a little bit less covering than some of the other ones because of higher temperature in general. And we're going to have a little bit of asymmetry here, so I'll just have to edit it when I mirror things. But this is meant to be kind of like a skirt. These kind of rough edges. And one key thing is like a fire-like decorative pattern in a lot of the clothing. We have here are, and I don't know if there's a name for this type of garment. I'm pretty sure I only see it in like fictional media, but these forearm sleeves. They're tied off kind of right where the forearm and the bicep meet. And this particular character, I think we'll give her maybe kind of like low cut shoes. Again, this is not armor. This is just casual wear. Lava says, looks like Primal Fire. Like this has nothing in the middle. What do you mean by nothing in the middle? You mean as far as the way the outfit's designed? It'll look a little more cohesive once I mirror it, and I can actually finish off like the patterning on the skirt. Because right now the shirt cuts off up here, and the edge is gonna go here. I'll just show you what I'm talking about. It's gonna go up to like here, and then the skirt itself is gonna come down from here like that. I can even layer it too. That might look a little more interesting, but I know from just one half, it looks kind of like this character is not wearing a lot, but it's because of the way the patterning is, and I'll fix it when it's mirrored, because it's not going to be symmetrical. Well, it says, I see this as one of those dresses aliens would wear at a black tie spaceship cruise. Yeah, I could see that. It's not meant to be formal wear, per se. In fact, I don't even know what this particular race's formal wear looks like. That's one type of clothing style I haven't done a lot of ideas for. You know, at like a fancy black tie event, like you said. Most of the stuff I draw is meant to be either like casual wear, walking around on the street, or armor, like combat armor. So formal wear is interesting. That I should look at doing that. It's a whole nother style of clothing to do, but each race would be different. That gives me something to think about. It's a good idea. And it's going to be based on like the customs of each race too, since this race lives on a hot planet, temperate world. Would their formal wear still be like really heavily concealing? Or would they have adapted formal wear to be more like revealing or less covering because that's the norm? That's actually something I've never thought about, because I've never written any scenarios where the characters in like the story would be at like a fancy gala or whatnot, but that is interesting. So kudos for giving me something to think about that I never thought about before. Okay, so we don't have to have everything completely finalized because a lot of it's going to be asymmetrical. So we'll mirror this, and then I can fix the parts of the dress and add some other details. Oh. And I could not put it on its own layer. That's just brilliant. Fortunately, these are all not on top of each other. There we go. So we'll flip this over the y-axis. And before we merge everything down, we'll actually do the edits so that it's not symmetrical. Another thing I should probably practice or get better at is doing like a 360 turnaround character sheet type thing. I never do that because very rarely do I need to have all angles of my character be fully rendered, but I do get asked every once in a while what the other side of the character outfit looks like. Okay, let's erase, or not erase, let's hide the primary underneath. Make it easier to rough in some of the details. And I like to think for this particular design, because it's a bit shorter for like a dress or a skirt, I like to think that around the other side it's just the same kind of shape. Kind of follows the same pattern, so this part's meant to be behind. Okay. A little bit simple. Here's a question. Should I change the fire patterning on the upper body here on the left side? Should I make it so it's not symmetrical since the rest of the design's not symmetrical? Should I even take off the fire patterning and only have it on one side? Let's see how that plays if we just delete this off. There's another thing we could do is build out the fire pattern a bit more so it almost looks like it's wrapping around the body. Yeah, I think that looks a little bit more interesting than just having it be mirrored. Could even do something like this if we really don't want to go crazy with it. Having it run all the way across the other side. I think it's a little too much. I like having it just on the side. That way it doesn't draw the eye too much away from the rest of the model. Okay, let's go ahead and save that. Coloring wise, this would probably be a mix of kind of bright colors, like maybe reds, oranges, and kind of light browns. The fire patterning itself would probably be like a yellowish color. This particular race, compared to some of the other ones, likes really bold, striking colors, which makes sense because of the fire. And so things that kind of mimic tribal markings or something like that, and even tattoos tend to be kind of focusing on that kind of fire patterning. So now we need to create a similar type design for male model, again invoking the idea of casual wear. So we'll slide these over, make room. And we move on. Now for this one, similar idea. Again, we're keeping it same race, so same type of climate and style, but we want to kind of convey, again, casual, regular wear, but something that you'd see in a warm or temperate environment. So I think I got an idea. What I'm going to go for here is kind of a variation on like a vest-like outfit that cuts off at the shoulders, like a short sleeve. I guess all vests are short sleeve, or sleeveless rather. And we'll have kind of like a shirt, like a short sleeve shirt underneath. And on the arms, let's say the short sleeve shirt kind of cuts off around here. Let's give this dude kind of like street gloves, Maybe something you'd wear on like a motorcycle. Oh, I forgot another feature that this particular race is a fan of. It's these kind of sash decorative garments that are kind of fastened to like a waist piece or even underneath something like a belt, like this dude's got. And these don't really serve a function, they're really more just decorative. And so like this particular cloth thing would just kind of hang down to the leg and maybe have like a decorative pattern. On it like that. Maybe this wraps around to the back too, so it's just a layered cloth garment meant for decoration. What we're doing here is kind of like a shorts, not short shorts, but just regular cutoff shorts. I do know from the concepts that I've done in the past, this particular race, because they deal with such high temperatures normally for armor, even though it tends to be a little bit more maybe revealing compared to some other ones, because you can't just have non-protective outfits for armor in situations like combat. I think what would replace just these regular kind of coat or vest-like garments would be actual protective, like what's a good word to describe it? Kind of similar to the way riot gear is set up, to where it's meant to protect and it covers more. But this particular race isn't known for like plate armor and something like that. If you contrast it to like bug people over here, but it would still be like reinforced and protected gear that like law enforcement or military would use, that they're protected from arms fire or like melee damage. Likewise, there'd be like leg protection, arm protection. A bulletproof vest is probably the best way to describe what a lot of the torso looks like. And we'll go kind of more like sneakers or almost like high top shoes. All right. So this one's going to be a little bit easier than the last one because it's pretty symmetrical. I think the only thing I would change when I flip it are these things. These are meant to be clasps to actually hold the upper garment closed if need be. think by default it's just kind of like an open garment, but if it needed to be closed up, either because it's cold or whatnot, then it can be fastened together. So these aren't just permanently open garments. I think I mentioned, this was maybe a long time ago when I first started doing concept design stuff here on stream, if I had more time to learn a skill and I was on a different path in life, I think I probably would have learned sewing, because I do like designing outfits, and being able to like sew and work with fabrics and whatnot for cosplay, I think would be really cool. Not necessarily just for duplicating like characters I've seen and things, but even just to design my own clothing and outfits, I think would be really cool. But I don't know how to use fabric at all. I can't sew. I've made wearables. I haven't done it in a while, but I've made wearables out of other materials, things like masks and whatnot, but I've never done really complex clothing out of fabric. It's just not within my wheelhouse for skills that I currently have, which is why I have a lot of respect for cosplayers that create everything by hand. It is not easy. So what I really need to do is just find someone who is skilled with materials and sewing, and I can give them my designs and have them make the outfits. That's what I need to do. But that would involve going outside and meeting people. And can't do that. Okay, so we're gonna flip this, and this draping cloth thing on the side's not gonna be on the other side, so it's not completely symmetrical. Oh, what? I thought I put this on its own layer this time. Again? I did it twice in a row. It's a good thing I always move these, so they're not on top of each other, or I would be hosed. Okay, that should be good for the symmetry. Now we just need to edit the side we mirrored so that it does whatever we want it to do. Actually, we can merge them first. They can be on the same layer. Like I was mentioning, we can delete this off of this side. It's only going to be on the right, facing the camera. We don't need the clasps on both sides. If we're thinking about how it'd be fastened, we only need it to be kind of like that. So this is clipped over there, and that's clipped over there, and that's what closes the garment up. Okay, let's go ahead and save our progress and let's talk about what we've done. I feel like these two took less time than the other ones because they're a little bit less busy design-wise. This will be 2B. Lava says, "Hey Raku, fun fact, a kid survived 400 bee stings through sheer adrenaline by pretending to be Vegito from Dragon Ball." Wow. Was that in South America? I do like the Dragon Ball properties in South America, but that's pretty hardcore. Imagine the flex telling all your friends when you eventually get out of the hospital and regain full mobility that you survived a swarm of bees through sheer anger and determination. Couldn't be me. Here's a fun fact. This is a free Raku Factu, which I know I don't have the redeem on anymore because honestly, I ran out of facts to tell all you people, but your fact is I've been stung by a bee once that I can remember. And it was a while ago. It was many, many years ago. But it was on my toe. Well, one of my small toes. I don't remember which one exactly. But I got stung. It might have been a yellow jacket. I don't remember if it was a bee or like a wasp or hornet proper. But either way, I got stung on like one of my little toes, which is not where you have a lot of cushion and flesh, so it hurt like a mother. It was not fun. Would not recommend. It could be worse. It could be my brother. My younger brother, for a long time, was just a serious magnet for a type of creature that you can only encounter in like tropical areas, and it's called a Portuguese man-o'-war, which is, it looks like a jellyfish, but it's not a jellyfish. It's a different type of animal. But they live in like the tropics. This was on a trip to Hawaii eons ago, so it's probably like 30 plus years ago. But for some reason, my brother was just a magnet for these things. They're not hostile, really. They just float on the ocean in colonies, and they eat things. They look like a kind of a blue, like a bright blue bubble on top of the ocean. And their tentacles that sting, kind of like a jellyfish, extend below the surface of the water, and they just snare fish as they go. They don't get that big, but some like species can get large. And people usually encounter Portuguese man-o'-war when they wash up on shore, and people either step on them or they wash up onto them. Because again, they just float with the tides. And when they wash up on shore, they get stuck on dry land, they just dry up and die. But it look like these bright blue bubbles on the beach. Well, my brother was just minding his own business in the water, and like at least 2 different trips, he got these things washed up on him. And they won't kill you unless like the really big ones that live in other parts of the world sting you, but it hurts a lot. They're very painful. And you treat them like a jellyfish sting because the type of tentacles that they sting with are very similar, but they're not the same type of organism. Jellyfish live underwater. Like they swim under the water, and you encounter them underwater when they wash up on the beach. The Portuguese man-o'-war travel on top of the water. They use their bubbles to kind of just get pushed by the wind. And that happened enough that I was convinced they just had it out for my brother. Not fun. And fun fact, you may have seen in folklore or on TV or whatever, but if you get stung by a jellyfish or a Portuguese man-o'-war, you're not supposed to pee on it. I know that's kind of like the folk remedy, and people say, oh yeah, if you ever get stung by something like that on the beach, just pee on it. That actually doesn't help, and pee is not sterile, so it can actually cause infection. What you're supposed to do if you get stung by like a venomous animal like that in the water is run hot water over it, because it causes the stinging cells to get washed off. You don't want to use anything abrasive, because if you try and like rub it off with like a towel or something, it can cause them to sting more. You're supposed to get like hot water, warm water. Don't burn yourself. Warm water and like rinse the area well and get it clean that way. Don't pee on it. Obviously, I've been stung by a jelly. Oh yeah, what kind of jellyfish? Or I guess where was it? Because I know in Hawaii, in addition to the Portuguese man of war, which again travel on top of the water and wash up on the shore, they also have box jellyfish, which are pretty dangerous too. I think those can cause life-threatening stings. They're pretty venomous. But yeah, either way, be careful when you're in the water. I know in Australia, there's a lot of potentially dangerous animals in general. But one I was thinking about recently, Virginia Beach in the United States, it could have been a box jellyfish. I know they have them on the other side of the country too. But it could have been another species too. But you obviously survived, so that's good. Lao says, fun fact, Superman did permanent damage to the KKK. Nothing wrong with that. Oh, okay, Lao says, I was surfing, then all of a sudden my knee's burning like crazy. Yeah, that's pretty likely you got stung by a jellyfish. There's not much else in the water that can really do that to people. But I was thinking the other day when I was doing some concept design work about an animal that I think is really remarkable, but I would never want to be around. And I would think it was because I was thinking of Monster Hunter Wilds, which features cephalopod creatures now, like octopus-shaped creatures. And the animal I was thinking about, which reminded me of that a little bit, is the blue-ringed octopus, which lives in a couple different parts of the world. They don't live around the States. But I know they live near Australia, because of course they do. But the blue-ringed octopus is very small. Like, compared to a person, if we think of these as human scale, they might be this big. They're tiny. They're little creatures. That's not enough legs. There we go. But the thing about the blue-ringed octopus is it gets its name from the bright blue ring patterns on its body that kind of light up when it gets agitated or scared. Normally it's kind of like a palish brown color, but when it's threatened, it turns kind of like bright yellow with blue rings and like black inner markings to make them contrast more. And it's a warning pattern, but if you get close enough or you pick them up or do anything when they're pissed off and they bite you, they're one of the most venomous creatures in the world. Something little and tiny like this can kill like more than a dozen people with the amount of venom it packs. And because they're so tiny, sometimes people see them on the beach or in the tide pools and they pick them up and play with them and they don't realize they've been bitten because they're so small, and they die of acute poisoning from tetrodotoxin, which is the same thing that's in the pufferfish. It's a very potent lethal poison that basically paralyzes your lungs and you die from anaphylactic shock. So if you ever out there in the tropics and you see a really pretty octopus with blue ring colored patterns, stay away. Don't touch it. Because if you do, you're probably going to die if it bites you. Lava says, I got another fun fact about a fictional character having real world effects. And it's about music. Lava says, Solid Snake is why Invisible by Duran Duran is popular or became popular? That's interesting. I do like Duran Duran. Solid Snake is cool. I remember when, I know we're not talking about drawing anymore, but that's okay. In Metal Gear Solid 5, when Phantom Pain came out, it's got a lot of songs in it from the 80s. And the one that got really kind of re-popular when that game came out was The Man Who Sold the World, which is a cover of a David Bowie song by a dude from the 80s named Midge Ure. And it's a really cool cover of The Man Who Sold the World. The original by David Bowie is also excellent. They're both really good songs. But the original is kind of a mid-tempo song. It's got a slightly darker feel, but the cover by Midge is way kind of like more brooding and kind of darker. It has a whole different tone to it. Like, you listen to both versions, they're both about the same thing, but they feel very different. And the cover version, which came out a little bit later in the 80s, is the one that was featured on Metal Gear Solid 5 Phantom Pain. And so I remember a lot of people talking about The Man Who Sold the World, which is a really cool song. I recommend checking it out. And there's a bunch of other ones on there. I haven't played that game in forever. I never beat it, but there's a whole lot of classic 80s tracks on Metal Gear Solid 5 OST. Hypothesis. Metal Gear Solid 5 is why Gloria makes me think of Nam. Well, it takes place in the 80s, right? Because that's why all the stuff is featured there, because it takes place before a lot of the stuff in the later games. But is it a prequel? No. Is it between 2 and 3? I don't remember. I'm not really that smart on the lore of the MGS games. I've only played 5, like half of it. Okay, let me think about what I want to do. We are coming up on time for the stream. I don't think I have enough time to finish another one of these. What we can do, let's do this. Let's organize things and kind of see what our layout is. I have to go see to dinner soon before it gets too late. But let's move these 4 up one and make space for another set, because we're going to come back to this template again. Our model and primary will stay down there, but we're going to move these up. And we'll move them over. So realistically, I think we have enough room for 6. 6 and 6. They could fit another 2 up here. Lava says 5 is before 1 and 2, and 4, but after 3? Oh, okay. Chronologically, the flow of time is very weird and convoluted. Love says, I gotta bounce as well, I'm tired. Hey, no problem. You know, thanks for stopping by and chatting. Hopefully this exercise in iterative design, again, similar to what we've done before. It's nothing new, but working from this perspective gives me a bit more options when it comes to especially symmetry. And so I want to work with this again before we kind of swap back and forth. This other version that we were doing before, we have to continue these as well, since we have more character-specific details. But we'll definitely revisit this concept in the future. As far as upcoming streams, I will be back on Sunday unless some family-related stuff this weekend changes my plans, but it shouldn't. If everything goes according to plan, Sunday we'll be finally picking up with more Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance. I don't think we're going to beat it, but we should be getting closer to the end. So if the adventures of Pretty Demon Boy in the Hellscape sounds like fun, feel free to stop on by. Okay, what we can do, because again, I don't have enough time to finish another one of these. Before we completely wrap up, let me check my list of who's online, and we can at least queue up the raid. Let's see. Oh, I see Blue is online again. He is playing Factorio. Okay, it seems like very frequently whenever I get a chance to raid that dude, he's playing Factorio. I was just playing Factorio today, so that is timely. We can go ahead and head over there. So let me cue that up for now. And we will pause music here. And go to outro. And like I said, we will call that a stream. Moderately productive, 4 decently fleshed out concepts. I will think, like I mentioned on stream today, about the idea of having things done and fully developed so that we can spend more time talking about things. And maybe for the next drawing stream, or maybe I'll call it something different. Maybe I'll call it like a conversation or like discussion stream instead, so that people don't get confused. But maybe we'll do that. I will think about what will be interesting for everyone tuning in to the streams here. So again, thanks again for hanging out, folks. We should be back later this weekend. Hope everyone has a good rest of your evening. Now let's go see how the factory is growing with that blue. I'll catch you folks in the next one.